All right, welcome back. Thanks for joining me, Rylan Kamal. Well, I got to start by saying both Rylan and Kamal have no idea what the topic of this video is today. It's about movie rumors. All right, so I've compiled a list of rumors of various kinds of movies from around the internet, and we're going to go through them and get your guys' thoughts. So, the first one up. Coming off the release of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, we've got the news that there are 3 MCU projects that have allegedly been marked to be dated with no release date. Those projects are 3 TV shows, Disney Plus shows: Ironheart, Agatha, Coven of Chaos, and Echo. It's important to note that these 3 are all spin-offs of the movies, as well as one being a spin-off of the movie and 2 being spin-offs of the TV shows. What do you think of them potentially slowing down the releases of some of these Disney Plus projects and the MCU in general?
So I'll start with saying I don't recognize any of those names.
I have to
I
agree. I don't know any.
I didn't watch Hawkeye, but I know a bit about it. So Echo is the one I recognize is from Hawkeye, I believe.
That's correct.
Ironheart, I mean, sounds kind of cool. Probably Iron Man spin-off. And
Kamal, do you know what Ironheart is?
No, I have no idea what those 3 titles were. I my guess Ironheart is something to do with the man with the iron fist.
So completely unrelated to the MCU. That's your guess. Okay, so I'll just go through these really quick and tell you what the projects are. So Ironheart is a spin-off of Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. The character of Riri Williams is Ironheart. She is a genius in her own. She created her own kind of Iron Man suit, and in Wakanda Forever, the Wakandans have to recruit her to get help for the plot of that movie, and then she is kind of like let off to do her own thing at the end of Black Panther 2. Agatha, Coven of Chaos is a spin-off of WandaVision. Agatha was revealed to be the villain who was behind some of the conflicts out at West Point, I think or Westview, where that show took place. She's a dark sorceress. Related, she has a relation to what's called the Darkhold, which is a evil spell book. And we have no real information on what that show's about. It's supposed to introduce new characters in like the magic side of the MCU. And then Echo is a spinoff of Hawkeye, which Rylan said. And Echo is I believe she's deaf, Native American character who I think she's the niece, or she's somehow related to Kingpin. I can't remember exactly. Hawkeye wasn't my favorite show, so I don't remember too well. But it's important to note with these projects that at least 2 of them are done production.
Ooh.
So I believe the ones that are done filming all the way. No, I could be wrong. It's either 2 or all of these have been completed production with no release date.
Ooh, wow.
So
my money's on Ironheart.
So do you think that the Marvel / Disney are going to scrap these projects, kind of like what WB did for Batgirl, or do you think that they're going to eventually release them? Rylan, I know that you follow the box office. Like, what with the projections and then the actual numbers of Ant-Man's first weekend, what does that kind of look like for you, and like the comments that maybe Bob Iger has made at Disney about maybe cutting back?
Yeah, it sounds like with no release date plus the state of the box office, they're less confident in their spin-off IPs, maybe. Because, yeah, Ant-Man has been underperforming relative to MCU. It is the highest grossing of the franchise at this point, like 5-6 days into its run. But there's a good chance it'll flop from here on out and just drop really hard and not have any legs. So if that's what they're seeing, then I don't know. I feel like they should push forward with these projects regardless, unless they're like just terrible in quality. but that's subjective, right? A lot of people might fall in love with the characters if one aspect of the writing is good. So it's like I think they should do it, and then they could push the most successful one towards the big screen if it's like a big hit.
And wait, and are all these like 3 movies or TV
These
shows?
are all Disney Plus TV shows.
TV shows.
So
Okay.
multiple hours of content
Right.
for the MCU.
Well, how successful has Disney been with TV shows lately, like of this?
Well, the reception has been really high to very low, so kind of all over the place,
Right.
depending on like what show you're talking about. So I think the one that got the best reception was probably Loki, and then followed by I think the next highest one is Hawkeye. Like that's and WandaVision like was the first one that came out, so it like WandaVision got good praise, and then we had Falcon and Winter Soldier, which was like middle, and then we had Loki, which was super high. So like these 3 spin-offs are from shows and movies that have been well received. However, that being said, they are not like from an outsider perspective, like I don't think they're necessary. Like if anything, Ironheart was the most ham-fisted part of Wakanda Forever.
Right.
Echo, her story wrapped up in Hawkeye, and Agatha was most likely developed because people liked the character from WandaVision. I don't think it was necessarily like planned out ahead of time, whereas Echo I think was like when you're coming like reception wise, so like from the fans. Echo was already in production before Hawkeye had come out, or shortly after it came out, but before like the whole series was done.
The one positive I see about those is like the main characters are, and this is something Marvel's been doing, but they're from like underrepresented communities, right? Like minorities in films. Always a good thing. But if they cancel it, then it's like just the script is flipped on, them kind of trying to bring up the representation. But in terms of the characters themselves, like, man, they just have to sell the show really well to get people to watch it, and then hope that the show is good enough that people will get past the first episode.
Yeah, I don't know. I think like from an outside's perspective, not knowing Marvel as much, I think Ironheart to me already interests me more than any other of these projects. I think just because I feel a lot more, I feel like there's a lot more interest for me to explore like Wakanda and sort of its links to other movies and other groups. I think as opposed to the other ones, but that's just again that's just from an outsider's perspective for me.
Okay. One thing to note, just real quick, is that all 3 of these, at least in Ironheart, the villain, and then Agatha and Echo, all of these shows have links to like the magic side of the MCU. So like right now we're kind of exploring the multiverse and like kind of like the really like vague concepts of like different parallel universes, right? So them in tandem doing the magic alongside of it, like I don't know, it just doesn't feel as like cohesive with what they're doing. And then also does hearing like these being to be did, do you think that Marvel overall will and like the comments from Bob Iger, do you think they're going to slow down the MCU, or do you think that these shows are going to get a date?
They're going to slow it down based
Yeah,
on the
for
fact
sure.
that Marvel's got delayed.
Yeah.
Yes, it did get delayed to November, which is pretty big, and I've heard that it's mostly due to post-production concerns, wanting to get the effects done. There was an article that came out recently saying that resources from some of these VFX houses were moved from Ant-Man to Black Panther to get that finished up, and that's some of the reasons why Quantumania's effects weren't to like the like big budget standards, which is kind of crazy. All right, coming off of the MCU, we got another rumor.
Thing to add though.
Okay.
Moon Knight. That was MCU, correct?
Yes, it was MCU, but mostly unrelated.
Yeah, and see, that's what I was thinking 3 new TV shows would be like at least one of them an unrelated new character. But if they did that, I wish they would kind of go back to their roots of like grounded in reality, so that fans who are kind of put off by the magic multiverse needing to watch everything to keep up could go back to like it's Marvel, it's MCU, but it's still like grounded.
Standalone story. Yeah,
So like you think
yeah.
we're so late stage that we have to come back to like the like Iron Man semi Dark Knight kind of feel where it's like superhero but realistic enough that it's like okay, I could buy that.
Yeah, like diversify their portfolio. Like if
Mhm.
everything's magic and quantum realm and parallel universes, it kind of loses its shine after a while, in my opinion. And then I also remember Captain America and the Winter Soldier tried doing that. I liked that idea. The execution just wasn't there. But it's like if they did it with a fresh character, a brand new character, where they're not trying to like tie in all these movies at the same time, I think it would be an easier job. Like you could get more original stories.
Okay. Good point. Moving on to the next one. How many of you have seen the movie I Am Legend?
Oh yeah.
How many of you have seen the I Am Legend alternate cut from the DVD?
There's an
No, I don't think so.
Too bad, because they're making I Am Legend number 2 with Will Smith
Michael.
and Michael B. Jordan attached
Yeah,
to star. This will
I actually did
continue
hear that.
from the alternate ending of the DVD, which showed Dr. Robert Neville, played by Will Smith. He realizes that he was the real monster to the actual monsters in the movie, which were called the Dark Seekers. He had been, taking them and experimenting on them, and he has in the alternate cut, they come to collect one of the test subjects that he has, and you see like a picture of a bunch of the previous test subjects on a wall, and they see him as the monster, and it's sort of closer to how the short story was by Robert Matheson, which I've read myself. It's very good. Recommend you read it. And so in this ending, he survives instead of blowing himself up with a grenade, and he has along with the 2 survivors that were at the end of the movie, the little boy and the adult lady. They head off towards Vermont with a radio broadcast saying, "Hey, there's people out here, and like, let's get the world back together." I've got a quote from Akiva Goldsman, who was the writer of the last movie and is going to be producing and writing the current movie. He says, quote, "This will start a few decades later than the first," unquote. This movie, like I said, will be written by Akiva Goldsman. It's produced by Will Smith, Michael B. Jordan, and it will also be produced by Akiva Goldsman. There is no director at this time. The original movie was directed by Francis Lawrence, who did Constantine, Hunger Games Catching Fire, Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1 and 2, and is currently directing the Hunger Games The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which is slated for November of this year, I believe. So what are your thoughts on them going back to do a sequel to I Am Legend, as well as using the alternate cut, which many people actually haven't seen?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I think I don't know. I think that might be slightly a problem considering everyone remembers sort of the final scenes of the movie where he just blows himself up, and it was so. I think it was so iconic to me, especially watching the movie. And I don't know how I feel about it. Like, I don't know how I feel about him sort of surviving that. But I don't know. What do you think, Riley?
So I read the short story,
Mm.
and I'm in love with that ending. Like, just it blew my mind when I first read it, the way it was described in the book. So not having seen the alternate cut, and I don't really remember the movie super well, so like that final scene doesn't stick in my head as much as the ending of the book does. So I'm like
The
totally
final scene being like him blowing up.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm totally
And what was the ending in the short story?
So Rylan, correct me if I'm wrong. The ending of the short story was he finally gets captured by in the movie they are vampires as well, but they play it more like zombies. But in the book they're actually like straight up vampires.
Okay.
They capture him. He's put in a cage and like hoisted above a bunch of the vampire like civilization, and they basically revere him like they caught Bigfoot. Like that's why it's like I Am Legend, because as in the character, is a legend to these vampires. He's the vampire hunter.
Yeah, and it was like a ritual ceremony almost to
And
like
then he
show
gets
that
killed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to say
So
I could be totally misremembering, but there was like a sympathetic vampire who let him die a painless death, and that's the end of the book, whereas he was about to be like full on sacrificed to the
yeah, so he actually had like a romance with a pale not a pale vampire, a relatively normal looking vampire. Like, so they're all like cold blooded and stuff, I believe, in the book, and like there's like a sheen to them. But this lady vampire, she just either disguised herself with makeup or she looked more human than the other ones, and so he ends up in a romance with her throughout the book. And then she like betrays him and hands him in, and then she convinces them just to do it quick.
So
Hmm.
yeah, the revelation that he's the monster is great, and if they can tie that into the first like 10 minutes of this movie, I could see it being great. Like if they can make it clear to the audience that like the humans are the monsters in this story, that would be pretty unique when it comes to like vampire zombie movies. You know, it's never the rise of a civilization, it's always about the fall of the human civilization. So if it was more about the rise of like the vampire civilization or the dark seekers, um that would be pretty original, pretty cool in my opinion. And like especially if it's decades later, I feel like they can do their own thing while still respecting like the base that was built in the first movie, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the one thing, like, the thing that is like very obvious on paper is Will Smith and Michael B. Jordan being in the same movie together.
Yeah.
Like, that's like, why hasn't this
It might be a
happened
little.
yet?
Yeah.
But the thing that kind of makes me nervous is actually Akiva Goldsman, because he is so hit and miss, like
I was gonna
more
ask,
miss than hit.
can you list his credits?
So from off the top of my head, because I didn't write it down, he is credited with A Beautiful Mind, which I believe won him an Oscar for writing.
Hmm.
And then he's used that to basically ride his career into the sunset and just write. He like is the go-to guy on writing a lot of just like back in the late 90s, early 2000s. It was like, if you need to get a movie written really quick, boom, Akiva
Hmm.
Goldsman. You get Batman and Robin, I believe it was. He helped with the story on that one, at least. He did a draft. He's also done recently like the Star Trek Paramount Plus series. He did Constantine, which Francis Lawrence also directed. And then they, along with the announcement of I Am Legend 2, they announced that they're doing a follow-up to the Keanu Reeves Constantine movie with Francis Lawrence, Keanu Reeves, and Akiva Goldsman. So he wrote that movie back in the day. He's written I Am Legend. He wrote The Dark Tower, I believe it was, with Matthew McConaughey, and was it Idris Elba was in that one?
Yeah, with the double. Yeah.
Yeah. So those are the ones I can think of off the top of my head, and I just know every time I see his name, I know that it's like they hired him because he could get the job done, but it usually makes me worried.
Maybe not the most like original script because he's done so
No.
many stories over the years.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like some of his earlier work is better, but like The Dark Tower was a mess. Star Trek Discovery, or I think it was Star Trek Picard season 1. I watched a few episodes of. I'm like, nice, he's super big Trekkie, but the dialogue and like everything was just like not super good. And I could just tell, like you could just tell when it's like a script issue.
Man, if you told me everything except the Akiva Goldsman bit, I would be like marking the release
You'll
date
be
on my
down.
calendar right now.
Yeah.
But
Although
with
I'm
Goldsman,
fearful. Yeah, I'm fearful it might be like a similar to what was that Will Smith, Jaden Smith movie they did together?
After Earth?
After Earth. It almost feels like something like that, where it's just like you have these two big stars coming together to kind of, in a way, I would say one reprising a role and the other just sort of tagging along. And also, again, they're just two big names that I don't know if they'll work well together. Uh, so
Yeah, I do find it interesting that Michael B. Jordan and Will Smith are also producing it. Like, they've produced, and well, Michael B. Jordan will be directing Creed 3
Creed.
coming up.
Yep.
But like they're kind of getting to that point of their career where it's like they're probably going to only star in what they produce.
Yeah.
Right. And that's not always a bad thing, but it makes me curious as to like, what does that look like? Are we getting like this ridiculously over the top like blockbuster? Are we getting a thoughtful movie? Like it's just hard to say because there's so much
Director
star power on it.
will shape it because like I thought, who directed Arrival?
Denis Villeneuve.
Okay,
Oh,
a movie
okay,
like
that's
that, or like that would be the dream scenario because he's like one of my favorite directors. But also like, what's the guy who did Sicario and Wind River?
So Sicario was Denis Villeneuve directed it, but Taylor Sheridan wrote
wrote
it.
it.
But he's so busy
He
with the
wrote this.
Yellowstone
Yeah.
stuff. Like I don't know, I don't see him coming back to movies for a long
But like,
time.
if it's a director with like a specific vision, like those two directors have, I would
Mm.
get excited again. But if it's like Francis Lawrence, who like makes decent movies but doesn't have like that distinct feel,
Mhm.
then it could just be another generic sci-fi wannabe blockbuster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a quote, I didn't write this down, but Akiva Goldsman in the same like paragraph said that he's been watching The Last of Us and he's inspired to see what the world looks like 20, 30 years later. And I'm just worried he's going to take the wrong lessons out of that show
Mm.
and like try to mimic it in like a cheap way. But I mean, hey, we'll see what happens, right? I'm intrigued but not sold yet. You
I
know?
agree. I'm not sold on it. I am intrigued to see like how they continue from the first movie, just considering I haven't really read the short story, so it'll be interesting to see how they, move from that sort of from the original ending, right? And continue that on. But I don't think I'll be buying a ticket to it, at least as of right now. So
My guess is that like they don't really care. Like not as in like they have no care, but they're not concerned about people being like, wasn't Will Smith dead? Like, because I think like people are going to be like, oh, I Am Legend. Like I remember watching that. Like I liked it.
yeah.
Like, I don't think they're so concerned about like the continuity thing, but I would like Rylan said to see like maybe in the first little bit like maybe retcon it like in a smart like strong way.
They could also
Mm.
do that through the marketing, though. First trailer, show Will Smith's face. Boom. Done. People know what to
So
expect.
So
yeah. Okay, moving on to the next one. This was announced, I believe it was today being Thursday, February 23rd, 2023. Do you guys like Lord of the Rings? Do you like Middle Earth? Because I got news for you. We got new Lord of the Rings movies coming out. We have
oh,
announcement from that New Line Cinema and Warner Brothers Pictures have created a new multi-year agreement with Embracer Group, their subsidiary Middle Earth Enterprises, because Embracer Group had recently purchased the rights to a lot of the Tolkien estate, like Lord of the Rings rights. So that group will like license it out to different people to make products. So we got like 2 video games coming out soon, just lots of different media that they're trying to get into. So, anyways, they created a new multi-year agreement with Embracer Group, Middle Earth Enterprises, and they are going to be working on new The Lord of the Rings movies. So, this was announced by Warner Brothers CEO David Zaslav. He said this during the Q4 2022 earning results meeting that they will be doing these movies. Currently in production is an original anime called The Lord of the Rings: The War of the Rohirrim. It's set 183 years before the events of Lord of the Rings. The movie will tell the tale of House of Helm Hammerhand, the legendary king of Rohan. It's set for a theatrical release April 12th, 2024. What do you think of them going back to make more Lord of the Rings movies? And also, if this is your first time hearing about the animated Lord of the Rings movie, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, you lost me for a second, and then I heard the words anime, and I was back in the game. Like just a different format to visualize Middle Earth in. Like, I might be on board for that. I might be really on board for that. And then if they just do it as like a not generic war movie, but like not trying to delve into the lore too much, but have it as a resource in crafting the world that they want to like portray, even better. Like, I was just thinking before you said the word anime, I was like, man, this is like, no Peter Jackson. This is like when Christopher Tolkien releases new Lord of the Rings books. You're like,
Yeah.
it's Lord of the Rings, but it isn't, you know.
So I
And then
just want to reiterate real quick. This anime movie, they say in the Deadline article, they said anime. Prior to that, it was always referred to as animated. So I'm not sure which animation style they're going with, but it's important to note that this was in production before these new Lord of the Rings movie deal was announced.
wait, are you saying there's a chance it gets axed? Are you pulling the rug
No,
out?
no, no. I'm not saying it gets axed.
Oh.
I'm saying that it's separate. It's like separate from whatever this deal is meant to be.
So it'd be like a one-off.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
So it was in production before the rights essentially got reverted back to got given back to not back to but given to Embracer Group to sell it back to New Line and WB.
Kamal, what are your thoughts
I
on animated?
I don't know. I agree. I agree with Rylan. I think it would be nice to see a different form of sort of Middle Earth and the way like they portray it and sort of the visuals behind that. I don't know. I don't know if I'll be more. It seems from my end like I really love the original Lord of the Rings, and it's hard to beat that Peter Jackson. And gosh, how much did it make? I think like 3 billion worldwide. All those three movies
Yeah, a
combined,
billion.
and yeah, a billion each. And I just think it'll be very hard to beat that. So I think getting the anime first, I think, would be good. It would be a sort of a good introduction to like what we may see in the movies. Even though like as you said, it might be a standalone. Is that right?
Yeah, it's gonna be using like the Lord of the Rings license, but it's essentially it's its own thing at this time.
Yeah, I would be interested more in the anime or the animated part of it first. I don't know about the movies. I feel like something's just best left untouched. Just because it has such a big you know like following, and it just
Legacy.
seems like yeah, and it just seems like it's not something you can do with like Star Wars, where you can like you know sort of pump out movies like once every couple of years, and it's gonna make a lot of money. I think it's a lot more deeply rooted to that. So yeah.
So do you think that Amazon concurrently running their TV show will have any effect on the Warner Brothers movies that they're going to be doing?
Depends which camp you fall in.
Yeah.
Did you love
Well,
it or
do you
did you
think
hate it?
do you think they're going to do enough to separate themselves from whatever that that was that we got in September?
Depends on the marketing. Like the first trailer will tell a lot. If it looks the same and sounds the same as the TV show, I think that'll turn off a certain segment of viewers,
Mhm.
but also bring in the people that loved the show. Whereas if they do something unique, it's a toss up whether someone will go see it or not.
So
Well,
you think they're going to lose audience no matter what?
They're just gonna have to pick which kind of audience they want to hit.
yeah. No, I think the answer to that is yeah, they're gonna probably lose audiences.
Okay.
Well, okay.
At
Well, I
least
have a
a
question, Rylan.
demographic, right?
Go ahead, Kamal.
Oh yeah, I had a question. So how did Lord of the Rings, like the Amazon TV show, how did it do generally, like in terms of numbers, like on the box office? Like how did it do?
Well,
Well,
TV shows don't make box
Sorry,
office
not
numbers.
not box office, but you know what I mean. Like how are the
How
ratings
was the
and
viewership?
yeah.
Rylan, go ahead.
I never dove into the numbers super deep, but from what I remember, it was very big on episode 1. I don't know if it held all the way through episode 10 though.
I think
The,
there was a curve. So it was like the first two episodes were super high viewership, and then it was moderate to high on the rest of the season.
I think like compared
Interesting.
to other TV shows, it was a hit in terms of viewership, but partially because they spent so much money on it.
It
And
had to be a hit.
yeah,
Yeah.
like the amount of advertising they did for that show was through the roof for a
hmm
streaming show.
hmm Yeah,
Um,
and I think that's what they're gonna have to do with like if these movies go ahead. I think that's what they're gonna have to do is try to replicate the exact same thing they did with the TV show. And I think Lord of the Rings is one of those unique movies where, or I guess I guess one of those unique movies where I'm not gonna go in watching like the fourth, fifth, sixth movie. Like I think 1, 2 movies is enough for me, and I think that sort of I think at that point like it's enough for me to like see how Middle Earth has evolved and more and sort of like branched out of the TV show. But I think they're gonna have to do the exact same thing they did with the TV shows, market the hell out of it.
Am I crazy, or is this following the same path as Star Wars with like a 30-year delay?
Yeah, that
Original trilogy.
It could, yeah, it could be up to 30 years until we see live action
Yeah,
Lord of the Rings. I guess The Hobbit, but that would be, it's kind of different.
yeah. Hobbit is like the prequel trilogy,
Yeah.
and then the Clone Wars and the Amazon TV show are like the in between, bridging the prequel.
Like sequel / Solo the Star Wars story.
Yeah, and now they're just gonna, because they have the rights, they're gonna just pump out maybe a trilogy and all these original movies in between and just try to make as big of a franchise as they can because that's where the money is right now.
So an important thing to note is WB is kind of treading water financially. So this new CEO has basically made it his mission to take their key flagship franchises and just not necessarily milk them, but pump them up, you know?
Yeah.
So that's why we're getting a DC reboot. That's why we're getting new Lord of the Rings. That's why we're going to get another, well, I guess Constantine falls under the DC, but man, I'm blanking really hard on what the other WB franchises. But anyways, all of their
dude, I don't know if that's going to be included.
All of their flagship franchises, they're just rebooting or pumping out more movies and stuff.
Sounds like
So
when you get a new boss at work and they restructure the organization.
well, that's basically what it is. Is like it's a restructure, and they're still losing money doing it.
Like, does the new WB boss have like links to directors and stuff, like people he's worked with in the past that you think he might bring into this project?
My understanding is that he comes from a background of like cheap live or cheap reality TV shows.
Oh God.
Like cable network.
Oh God.
So he's known for being able to like make a dime from a penny, you know?
Oh God.
So in terms of financials, not critical reception. So that's my understanding of the situation. I could be wrong. But that's like he was brought in to be the money man.
I could go for another fantasy blockbuster. I feel like there aren't many out there right now. And if they don't rely too heavily on CGI and they try to make it like, I use this word a lot, but grounded in terms of effects, you know, unlike The Hobbit, more like the first Lord of the Rings, it would stick out from the other blockbusters.
Yeah.
Almost like how Top Gun Maverick was huge at the box office, mostly because of Tom Cruise and the legacy of the first one, but also because those effects were so original and like real. And
So like bring back the costumes, bring back the smithing, bring back like the sets.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah, I think so.
The visuals of the Amazon show were amazing. If they kept that aspect of it up while telling maybe a better story with better characters, easier said than done. But I'd say that's the style they should maybe go after.
So, wait, so you're saying go for more of the Amazon style?
In terms of the cinematography.
That is so confusing to me because you just said make it more grounded, and yet
Exactly.
you're talking about elves flying in the air, Dragon Ball Z style. That is the most confusing statement. When you say grounded, I'm thinking like Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings, where you got like 1,000 people in orc costumes fighting like 100 elves with real swords, real chainmail.
The costumes and the effects specifically, not the way things move and the way it's staged and the way the action takes place, but the look.
All right, I guess we'll have to just see how it plays out. Speaking of WB, how many of you have heard the news of the DC reboot? Probably everyone. How many of you have heard what's being kept and what's being thrown out with the movies that are already filmed? Rylan, are you familiar with what they're keeping so far?
I'm gonna take a random guess and say that the Flash is like a Flashpoint event that's gonna reset the universe. But as far as what they're keeping and throwing away, I believe they're keeping the Robert Pattinson Batman stuff and throwing out Batflick, but I'm not sure. I haven't been keeping up with that news.
Kamal?
I no idea.
All right. Well, I'll stop you from guessing because I'll just tell you. The news is that Aquaman in the Lost Kingdom, which is part of the old DC universe and is slowly it's like part of the transition period to whatever the James Gunn DCU reboot is, has had terrible test screenings. The reports are that the test screenings are performing terribly. A lot of this news is from reputable leakers and like scoopers. So take it with a grain of salt. This is where we're going to start delving into the weird and wacky of the real rumors, okay? So I got a quote from a user known as Viewer Anon. He's been fairly accurate when it comes to test screenings specifically, audience receptions. He has a lot of connections there. So most of the time when he says something, it's usually legitimate, but obviously we don't know until it plays out. Quote, I'll be honest, we are a half dozen test screenings in, and it's not looking great. I've consistently heard over the last half year or so that it's boring, not as good as the first, and potentially one of the worst DCEU movies ever. Unquote. Another quote from a different user known as Big Screen Leaks. He is moderately reputable. Quote, I heard that something that almost never happens in test screenings happened with this movie. They're really going to need to fix this one and fix it fast, unquote. The third quote here is from a guy known as Jeff Snyder. He was the former senior film reporter at Collider. Has a fairly good track record, but this is a lot of opinion being interjected here. Quote, I hear it's terrible. And that's why Jason Momoa is going to be recast in the DCU as Lobo going forwards. But they can't say that yet because then it would be a lame duck. And DC is hoping to wring another billion out of the box office. The first one was awful too, so this is not a huge surprise. Unquote. So as you can tell, there's like some opinion interjected in that statement and a lot more speculation with the recasting situation with Jason Momoa, which was heavily rumored before. What are your thoughts? Do you think this affects them at all since they're rebooting it? Do you think that, there's, I think they moved this release date for this movie twice after it's been completed filming. What do you guys think?
Come on.
Are we looking forward to Aquaman? Did you like the first one?
I mean, I honestly, I did like the first one. I thought it was a very enjoyable sort of just movie, just a Friday night movie you kind of go and watch. Didn't really think more of it. Didn't really feel like it needed to be expanded as much. Like I just thought it was really well, and I also loved James Wan, so that really also brought me into there. And I don't know much about what happened with Jason, like what's going on with Jason Momoa recasting. Is there something I'm missing there, or?
So yeah, there's a rumor going around that he had a meeting with James Gunn prior to the new announcements of like the movie slate, and that this meeting apparently they talked about him exiting playing Aquaman and transitioning to playing the character Lobo, which is another DC character. He's kind of like, I don't know him super well, but he basically looks like Jason Momoa, except for he's got pale skin, red eyes, and he rides around on a cosmic motorbike. And he's sort of like a villain, anti-hero kind of thing.
Okay. All right. That Okay, well then going back to the I guess the early
Oh,
screenings.
and it's important to mention that Lobo is one of Jason Momoa's favorite comic book characters. Every interview he's taken over the last few years. Post Aquaman has been like, oh man, yeah, Lobo, sick. So that's also why people think he will play him.
Yeah, interesting. I think I always take it with a grain of salt for anyone who says this is the worst DC movie ever, because I've heard the same thing on almost every single movie, and it's ended up being better than expected. And the same goes to when people always say, this is the greatest movie of this, 2023. I always take all those grain of salt, so I don't know. I don't really see how. I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't think they're gonna scrape it, in my opinion. I think they put a lot of investment into it. There are a lot of big names, big director as well, and I feel like if there is any movie to pass the $1 billion mark, other than the Batman, which I know is coming 2025, if I'm not mistaken, around that time.
That's the rumored release year.
Rumor release. Well, I feel like any movie to pass, any DC movie to pass $1 billion before that would probably be Aquaman, the second one. So, I mean, those are my takes. If it does come out, I'm gonna go watch it. I'm just in love with the director, and I honestly did like the first movie.
Rylan, what are your few thoughts on this one?
So I studied statistics, and sometimes your hypothesis falls outside the confidence interval, 95% confidence interval type thing. So I'm wondering if these test screenings are like an outlier, basically,
Yeah.
and whether like most people's opinions actually would be positive towards this movie, or at least show enough interest to show up to the theaters for it. Like, I get the feeling if they push it out, it would do well. Just
Okay,
my
so
and I will say, like, DC is my favorite popcorn type movies where you just sit
Yes.
down and you enjoy it. So like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be mad if they push this one out because I don't expect anything crazy, but I expect to be entertained.
Yeah. And also, I don't really see sort of like early reviews of test screens like as a negative, in my opinion, for a movie like this, or in general most movies. Like, movies do need to go through this whole process of, like, you need to go through post production. You might have to reshoot some scenes. You might have to do all this stuff, and I don't really see that as a negative. I think it's if it is considered the worst movie of DC, like, honestly, like, I think they're probably going to come out stronger, in my opinion, and I think that's if done well. And again, I mean, I don't know. I trust James Wan to do his thing, and he hasn't, other than the last movie he did. I trust him in Malignant. I think other than that, every other movie I have been very happy with, and even at first, I think a lot of people were very like skeptical of, like, why is a horror director going into directing Fast and Furious and then Aquaman? But I mean, both movies went to 1 billion, and so far it's been good. So I trust the whole process that they're doing.
Yeah, like I don't know how many times I used to read like, oh, first cut of this movie is amazing, and then I'd go
Yeah.
watch it and be like, oh, this is just okay. Or like,
Exactly.
man, people hated the first cut and they had to do all these reshoots and like re-edit the whole thing, and then it turns out amazing. So it's like these test screenings, they can do anything to the movie between now
Yeah. And who knows?
Yeah.
It might be like the next Sonic, right?
Well,
Yeah.
it's
Like,
important to note that in test screenings, most of the time, unless like the visual effects scenes were planned out years ahead, most of the time the visual effects are like not even in the movie. Like sometimes they'll just have a screen saying like visual effects with a description of like what's happening. So
Imagine
it could
watching
become
Avatar without visual effects.
yeah,
Something
it could become incoherent like really quick if you don't have that as like a, and especially with the test screenings, like they're at the way I've heard it work is that there's people shopping at the mall in like Burbank, and people come up and be like, hey, I hear you like movies. you wanna you want a movie ticket? We got something happening over like next door, and they'll like invite random people walking the street to go watch their movie and then give it a little grade on a paper with like what do you like, what do you not like, what would you change. So yeah, it's like it's all over the place.
It's a good statistical method to get unbiased opinions. I'll give it that. Although location specific.
Location is, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, am I going to be surprised if it's not good? No. Am I going to
No.
be surprised if it's good? No. I'm
Yeah.
pretty middle of the road with this, and especially like as someone who is, pretty invested in the at least Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and Zack Snyder's Justice League. Like, I am a defender of those movies. I get if you don't like them, but you know, I've been through the worst of the worst. I've been through the best of the best with the DCU. I don't think anything's gonna hurt me at this point. So, and also with like the reboot incoming, like I don't think it has any weight on what's about to happen.
No, I think like they may as well release it and then
Yeah.
just see how it does. Like,
Yeah, it's like one of those. It's like a dice roll. It's like you either make a decent amount of money or you make $1 billion. It doesn't really matter. They're rebooting it all anyways. So,
Yeah.
well, I would assume if Aquaman 2 does like $1 billion again, that they would probably keep Jason Momoa as Aquaman going forwards. I think
they should
I
give him-
but my personal opinion is they should just like give up on the old. Like I think it's time to let go. And even as someone who was pretty disappointed with how things played out between like 2013 to 2017, I think it's just time to move on. All right.
Yeah, I agree.
Speaking of unfounded rumors with very few sources, I have another one. Are you guys excited for the Super Mario Brothers movie?
Yeah.
no.
What if I told you that allegedly there's a Legend of Zelda movie in development from the same
Ooh.
studio as the Super Mario Brothers movie, which is Illumination? They did Despicable Me, Sing, and the Minions series.
Damn it! You know what kind of format would be great is like Kobo and the two strings, or
Yeah, like a
Yeah.
Leica production or a
That
Studio
with
Ghibli
Zelda,
production.
in my opinion, more so than Illumination. Like, they're
Yeah.
good. It's probably gonna be family friendly, but like I'm not their target audience. So for me, when I hear that news, I'm like, it's gonna make $1 billion, but like,
Yeah,
will
but
I care
absolutely.
personally? No. Does that mean it's a bad move? Absolutely not. It's about time they put out a not live action, but they put out a Zelda movie. Like,
Yeah.
and that's got so much potential.
Oh, and actually, I kind of agree. You mentioned Studio Ghibli. That would be something very amazing. I think much more. I think much more creative than Illumination. I feel like every single move they've done, you kind of see a pattern of the way they formatted. And you're right, it's gonna make $1 billion. We're gonna be like, God damn it, and that's what's gonna happen.
So my opinion is that I think that this is absolute BS rumor for now. Like there is in the article I found, which was on the website giantfreakingrobot.com, which was the source I got linked to. There is like it's so unfounded. They don't have any. They don't even say like our inside source said this. Like they have nothing. It seems like complete like they're going for the Hail Mary like half court shot to see if they're right. It's like if you don't toss the coin in the pond, you might not get your wish, right? So that's what it feels like. But to me, I think if anything, the Super Mario Brothers movie is like the family friendly Nintendo property, and I think because I'm the way I am, I think that the Legend of Zelda movie, you go wild, you go deep, you go like dark fantasy or semi dark fantasy with like somewhat lighthearted, a lighthearted show with like some like Avatar: The Last Airbender style, where it's like family friendly, but if you want to watch it as an adult and you want to see some deep themes, it's still all there. Like I think that the Legend of Zelda timeline, the games, they have all those kinds of elements to make something like Avatar.
I mean, you're expecting a lot from the studio that brought you Minions.
Well,
Yeah.
that's the thing. I don't want it to be Illuminate. I like in my mind, I've already like changed it. I'm like, hey, Illumination's not making this movie. Like, I think it's so
But Illumination
ridiculous.
would have the rights, wouldn't they?
No, Nintendo would have the rights, and you'd have to like pitch in, license
Oh,
it.
okay.
Mm,
I
It would be
wonder,
separate from their Mario Brothers deal.
do you think so? I've honestly seen like half the trailer for Super Mario Brothers. Does it look like they're gonna have a Super Smash Bros. Kind of moment? Because is it like he fights Donkey Kong in the trailer?
I've probably watched less Mario Brothers movie content than you have, which is saying something. So I've seen like half a trailer, and I think I saw a poster yesterday with them on like the Mario Kart like vehicles. So
Huh.
I have no idea what that movie's supposed to be like. There
'Cause I
was a
see,
rumor like a year ago that it was a musical, but I think that's been debunked.
if Zelda, well, I guess Link makes a surprise cameo in Super
Oh
Mario.
no!
No. Because they're all in Smash Bros together. I
That's
could
true.
see it being like testing the waters of like how receptive is the audience
Yeah.
to this character.
Oh.
Should we push forward with, and like they might be writing a script already, and whether or not they put it into production depends on the reception. Go ahead.
I will only accept that if they do like the Smash Bros for the Wii, like what was it?
Brawl.
Super Smash Bros Brawl story mode, where it like ties in all the Mario or Nintendo worlds in a really cohesive way, and like all super ultra fan service, but with actual good writing. Like that. I remember that game mode. Remember that game mode, Rylan?
Oh yeah.
The story was great. I think if they could pull that off, then hey, maybe I'm down. But I don't need Link showing up and being like the first time we hear him since like that terrible like old CD game. We hear him come out the shadow and be like, Mario, I need to talk to you about the Smash Bros initiative. Like, I don't want that. I don't need him to like Nick Fury.
He's not Nick Fury.
I don't know, but I just think I think it's a bad move if they try doing that.
No, he's gonna like save Mario in one of the fights. He's gonna jump out from the crowd and have his.
Yeah, it's gonna be like a post-credit scene, and that's it. That's just gonna end it there.
Oh my god, they're starting a cinematic universe.
Yep, that's what they're doing.
Okay. Anyways,
Who's gonna come out of the shadows and recruit Kirby?
moving on to the next one. We're back to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. All right. Now we've really entered the territory of unfounded rumors.
You mean Zelda wasn't unfounded enough?
Nope, we're getting deeper. Okay, so buckle up. This comes from 4chan via way of Reddit, okay? We have the next two Avengers plot leaks. All right, boys, are you ready? I'm going to read them out to you, and we're going to discuss how crazy they are. All right. The next Avengers movie is called, this is already known, Avengers: The Kang Dynasty. Plot goes: Nathaniel Richards, the father of superhero Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four, recruits the Avengers to fight the Council of Kangs. Spider-Man is the lead character. Ant-Man will play a pivotal role. Doctor Strange does not appear. Featured characters include Thor, Hulk. Oh, this is the plot. This is the plot.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
This is
I've started.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm in.
Do you want me to restart?
Okay, all right.
Well,
Okay.
Spider-Man's the main character. I was like, wait a
Yep.
second.
Spider-Man's the main character. So feature characters include Thor, Hulk, Captain America, Black Panther, Captain Marvel, She-Hulk, Kate Bishop, Miss Marvel, Shang-Chi, the Wasp, Stinger, who is Cassie Lang, Scott Lang, Ant-Man's daughter, Hank Pym, Janet Van Dyne, among others. Shang-Chi's rings and Miss Marvel's bangles are relics of the previous multiverse war and are powerful weapons against the Council of Kangs. The Council of Kangs wants revenge against Ant-Man and his family, and they kill Janet. Movie ends with the multiverse collapsing and Kang the Conqueror returning as the character the Beyonder. He merges different universes into a world known as Battle World. Next one, Avengers: Secret Wars. Doctor Strange and Clea, which is Charlize Theron's character. She showed up in the post-credit scene in Doctor Strange: Multiverse of Madness. Keep up, Rylan. They arrive in Battle World and assemble its heroes to fight the Beyonder. Robert Downey Jr. returns as Superior Iron Man from Earth 818, who conspires to steal the Beyonder's powers for himself. Culminates with a massive battle where heroes from across the multiverse answer the call to stand against the Beyonder. Featured pre-MCU actors include Hugh Jackman, Ryan Reynolds, Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, Halle Berry, Famke Janssen, and Nicolas Cage. It ends with Nathaniel Richards, which is the father of Reed Richards, becoming the new He Who Remains, which was who Kang was at the end of the Loki TV show. And the He Who Remains will police the multiverse. The end. What do you think? Is it too confusing? Yeah, it sounds like it.
Ghost Rider
Yep.
pulling up to Battle World. Just
Apparently.
that alone is like,
Interesting.
what?
Yeah, and that all happens in 2 movies.
So that seems like a lot to pack into 2 movies.
Yeah.
They're gonna have to be like 3+ hours each. Which
And
if
may
it's
I
that,
remind you, it doesn't even have every character in the MCU listed here, but it's got enough that like I ran out of breath.
among others, yeah.
Among others, yeah.
Okay, the first bit of information for me was Spider-Man, the main character. I'm on board with that.
And I can tell
Yeah.
you that there is strong reason to believe that that portion is true. A couple days ago, or maybe a week ago, there were reports coming out that Tom Holland has signed a major deal with Marvel to reprise Spider-Man and be the lead in Kang Dynasty. So
Makes sense considering the box office of No Way Home.
yeah, and what you'll notice with like a lot of these like plot leaks that come out multiple years before is that they will take bits and pieces of information that are legitimate and then take the no duh kind of information and just smash it together into something that sounds somewhat legitimate. So would you like to see these movies if they were the actual plot leaks? And if not, why? And the other question I have is there too much going on?
I mean,
have
I
you
think
guys been keeping up?
Now I feel like I should. I gotta go back
yeah.
and watch everything.
Go watch all the movies again, man.
Including Ghost Rider. We watching Ghost Rider again.
Hey, the first one is not terrible.
For its
But,
time,
like-
it was not bad.
But I think that what I find interesting about these is just like the shot in the dark assumptions, like all the pre-MCU actors coming back, and like I think that there's I think at this point with Marvel, it's getting into like the comic book realm of like if you don't read the wiki, if you don't watch 24,000 movies and 15 TV shows before the next like Thor movie comes out, like you're pretty much lost. So like when I read this, I've read a few comics in my day. I've read a few wiki pages in my day. And I know that this is like Secret Wars-ish, like kind of what the comic was, but I don't think that's a good thing. I think that it's too much. Like with this specific description, too comic booky for its own good.
I don't know. I'm like on board, man. Like it's too comic booky if you follow the comic books. I don't. So this is all new to me. And I'm not comparing it to any previous iteration. So I'm like, man, this is ambitious. They're gonna pull out all the stops, but also like gonna reset towards the end to like tell more new stories with more new characters by the end of this whole saga, just like they did with Endgame.
Do you think that if they bring Robert Downey Jr. back, does it remove or does it take away from the sacrifice he made in Avengers Endgame, or is it enough of a parallel to bring him back in the final confrontation of Secret Wars that it's going to work?
If it's a different version of Iron Man, I don't think it lessens.
You don't think that
sacrifice.
cheapens the stock?
Not on paper. It depends on how they write the character. Like if they make it the same character with a different name, like just a reskin, like different suit, different name, whatever.
Yeah.
Then it's like, yeah, that's just Iron Man again. But if
What I would like to see with with Iron Man specifically is sort of like what they did with John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic in Doctor Strange, is they bring in, because that was like a fan cast, right? Like a lot of people online were like, "Oh, John Krasinski should play Reed Richards," and then they cast him for like the one-off thing. I would like to see them go back to the Tom Cruise Iron Man casting that they were about to do back in like 2006, and they bring him in to play
Mm,
Tony Stark at least once, or at least like in like a little bubble. You know, you just like see him or something. I think that would be good. I don't know if I want Robert Downey Jr. back, not because I don't like him, but because that was such a pivotal moment for his
yeah.
character.
And his story is already told. Like it's best to leave it where it is. I don't know. I think I'm more I think I'm more down. I'm like around in the same boat. I have not read all the comics. I saw. I honestly most of the Marvel movies. I just I go in and watch. I'm like, all right, and then just I don't get involved with too much of the thing. But I think I'm more interested in the first movie, less so than the second. It just seems like Spider-Man lead as the lead, lead superhero. I think to me that kind of takes it again, considering how much I liked the last one that Tom Holland did. So, and also Kang. I don't know. I think I'm pretty interested in him. I haven't actually seen Jonathan Majors in the new Ant-Man, and so I don't know how well he's done in that sort of villain role, but I do I do like him as the actor, and I do like sort of the movies he's going to be acting in particular, like Creed 3. I'm excited to see what he's gonna do. So I think I'm more there for Jonathan Majors than any other superhero for me.
Yeah, I think like he was strong enough of a strong enough acting and fairly good villain in Quantumania that like him being the next big bad, like obviously that's they shoehorned it into that direction because that's what they want, but I think it also works. Like I think it was one of the stronger points of that movie, probably like the only part of the movie worth watching, to be honest.
Mm.
um
I
yeah.
wonder if it's
With
like
his
oh
with his acting, I would just say like it was leagues ahead of the rest of the movie. Like when I was watching his scenes, I'm like, man, this seems almost like a different movie. Like he's putting in so much effort,
mm,
Versus everyone else like
and
was
it
sleepwalking.
stood out in a bad way for the film, but in a good way for the character.
Yeah.
yeah
So, anyways, I am intrigued by these
yeah.
next Avengers movies. I'm not taking much stock in the 4chan, plot leaks. So now we've gone. That's all I got for today.
Oh, I want to keep talking about this because
Well, what you got?
well, Battle World, I don't know what the heck that is, but what I'm picturing is like those pictures of flat Earth where it's just a disc in space.
They're
That's what I
just
feel
like
like. Yeah, and they're just rushing at each other from each end of this disc world
so
kind of thing.
pretty much like a recreation of Endgame, but just in a more 3 year 3000 style.
I would hope for more of a Civil War style fight where it's individual characters going up against each other instead of like
Yeah,
big CGI armies, which sounds like what maybe is happening because they have so
So
many
it would
characters.
be so many in Kang Dynasty. It would be like multiple versions of Kang. So it would be like a CGI army wave of animated Jonathan Majors with different faces and costumes. One thing that I find interesting that they omitted here is, which leads me to think it's fake. Like, well, obviously I think it's fake, but like if I was to take it a little more serious, right? The thing that they omitted that is like a glaring issue with this plot leak is we got no Fantastic Four named at all. Like we got Nathaniel Richards, but in Secret Wars, Reed Richards was like huge. Like he has his own council of Reed Richards, which they like monitor the multiverse and try to stop these incursions from happening. Which is like when the worlds start to collide. And then no Doctor Doom, pivotal character in Secret Wars. Where's like the mention of these characters? So I think it's probably not accurate.
Well, to be fair, they omitted big names before, right? Like in the build up to Thanos, like Thanos is a big enemy, but like they had other choices. They didn't bring them all in. So it's like what if they're just saving Doctor Doom and the
yeah,
Fantastic Four for the next
fine,
like
yeah.
come up?
But that's the thing is that they're so
Mhm.
pivotal to not have them in this doesn't make sense. It literally does not make sense. It would not work.
It doesn't make sense to a comic book reader.
I'm telling you, it doesn't make sense. You're going to be like the leaders of multiple movie cinematic universe saga storytelling, and you're going to omit one of the most important groups and characters from that, and you're gonna, it just doesn't make any sense. So that's why this is fake.
I don't know. I think they could get away with the omission. I think they could do it because I don't know how many people have read Secret Wars, but
a lot more than you think. Especially when they lead up to this movie, it's going to be on every shelf.
that's true.
But yeah,
What?
so like if you're going to be selling the Secret Wars comic is like with like a new cover or something, and you're not going to have the Fantastic Four in the movie, but you're going to have them prominently in the comic book, and you're going to have Clea in Secret Wars listed in the plot leak and not the Fantastic Four. Come on, give me a break.
How was the reception to the Fantastic Four in Doctor Strange? Audience reception.
For Reed Richards, it was great.
Okay. I could see them including Reed Richards, so maybe that's
You don't get one without the others, like in terms because they're getting their own movie before this.
Okay, well,
Oh,
this is all news to me.
Okay,
Yeah, I didn't know that as well. I didn't know.
Well, then of course, if they're not included in the leak, now man, this is a roller coaster. I tell you what, you had me believing in Battle World, and now I'm just questioning everything about the MCU.
Well, I'm questioning everything about this 4chan league, not the whole MCU, but I mean, at least with the Fantastic Four, where the Fantastic Four is concerned, I think that that's going to be like it's my most anticipated Marvel project outside of Blade.
Do we know who are casted for Fantastic Four?
Nope, ongoing. The rumor is
Okay.
Dev Patel right now, but it's been changing every 2 months. So
Yeah. Oh, nice.
yeah.
All I want out of these new Avengers movies is one sick ass
Indian
poster I
boy.
can put on my wall.
Oh, okay.
That too.
All right. Well, I guess we'll just have to keep waiting till I think it's 2025 is when that comes out.
Oh,
So,
gosh.
out of the ones that we've gone through today, which ones do you think are the most credible rumors? I guess some are confirmed, but which ones are out of like the most suspicious ones? Which ones do you think are most credible? And second, which of these movies are you most excited for?
Legend of Zelda.
Being the most credible out of the fishy
Yeah.
ones, or your most
I don't even-
anticipated?
Oh, most anticipated. I don't know, Rylan. What do you think?
There's so much up in the air.
I know.
So if I take your rumors as fact,
So basically, like the rumor, like the most rumored ones are the 3 MCU projects being delayed indefinitely. And then we go from like Aquaman test screenings, Legend of Zelda movie, Avengers plot leaks. Those are kind of like the fishy ones. And then the guarantees are like I Am Legend 2, Lord of the Rings, and that's it.
okay, so I could care less about the outcome of Aquaman. If it comes out, great. If it doesn't, I'm not gonna bat an eye. I'm not gonna lose sleep over Aquaman. Lord of the Rings, that one we said was confirmed.
Mhm.
Legend of Zelda, man, I want that to be true the most out of all of these.
I have to agree.
But until more details would be released, like what style of animation, who might be cast in it, that kind of thing, to like tell me what direction they would go, I gotta say this Avengers one, you left the best for last.
Yep.
If I take that as fact, I'm like, man, I'm on board.
I think for me the most anticipated is probably Legend of Zelda. Again, it would have to more information. I would need to know more information, and I would need to know that it's. I don't know. I mean, the illumination thing got me. Like, I don't know. The name it got it. Like Legend of Zelda, I heard it. I was like, yes, let's do it. Like, I'm all for it. And then illumination came by. I'm like, So I think that's for me. That's most anticipated. But I have to agree. I think Avengers that's the other one where I'm kind of like even though it's probably fake, it's sort of I'm a little more excited for that as well.
Okay. I think for myself, I'm actually most excited for I Am Legend #2. And out of the fishy rumors, I think that the ones that seem most credible is probably the Aquaman ones. I
Yeah.
mean, those seem legit. My Hail Mary, like if this were to ever happen, I would be interested. Would be Legend of Zelda, but like Kamal said, not from Illumination. You really have.
No.
I would if they switched their style up, which I mean, why would they? That's what they're known for. But if they did switch their style up for this movie, I'm on board.
Yes. Yeah.
I got one last thing to add. Out of the credible rumors, supposing that anime wasn't just a typo in that article, that's the
Lord of the Rings.
one I'd be more interested in for the Lord of the Rings animated.
The War of the
Mhm.
Rohirrim.
Yes.
Mhm.
All right. Well, thanks for joining me today, guys. We'll have to do it again. Just remember, these were just our thoughts, and we will see you next time.